good, fellas.
One big fire under the turkey.
What's
Happy
happening?
Thanksgiving, boys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I am grateful for both of you.
Indeed, I am grateful for both of you as well.
Same. And, I was like, man, Al nailed it, man. Gratitude edition. And I was talking about, I think we had Go on, last week, Albie, and we were talking kind of through gratitude, and then I threw something else out there, but had a few people reach out. I made a post about from gratitude, and we've all known, right? BMOs would always hit us with, the struggle ends when gratitude begins, and really focusing on some type of gratitude practice. And the post that I threw out there was along the lines of, we tend to default back to gratitude and struggle. Why can't we be more present with gratitude in times of abundance, in times of really the things that we have? And man, I'll never forget. And I've really been really good about this ever since Stuman shared Kentucky Derby Mastermind. We were in Cincinnati. I think it was Cincinnati. It might've been one of the first times after Key West, after we made the move to EXP. And, that room, Tammy Pack, Michelle Sayward, Go, like, just the who's who was in that room. Gove, just everybody, because we went to the Kentucky Derby, right after. And I remember, might've been, I think we had Stuman in there, right? And he talked about his gratitude practice every morning in his notes. First thing he does into his, when he pulls up his phone. Man, I adopted that thing immediately. And gratitude and wins, right? How you start the day and how you book in the day. And man, it's one of the best things that I've ever done is the moment I wake up, I just start typing, or I'll voice what I'm grateful for. And it just, what a way to kind of start the day, puts things into perspective, where you wake up, you get to travel, who you get to see, grateful for the obstacles in my path, grateful for, you guys, grateful for my inner circle, grateful for kids, family, health, mindset, right? Just everything that kind of comes to mind. And I'll never forget, man, he shared that was like one of the best little nuggets, from a gratitude perspective and a gratitude practice to be able to have. Man, it makes a world of difference in your mindset, especially starting the day.
So do you keep a digital journal of this?
Yeah, it's on my notes on my iPhone. It's on my notes. And I just have a note that says gratitude and wins 2024. I have one from 23, from 22, 21. And I just November 26, 2024, grateful. And then I'll just start, everything that comes to mind, like, what are you kind of grateful for in the moment? And it's just been really cool, man. Stuman's full of nuggets and wisdoms, but that was one of the best little, nuggets that I be able to pull from him.
Yeah.
I do remember now that you're saying that.
Didn't Stuman have a little app that he created?
He used to do it he did. I think he did create the app, G-Code
yeah,
app.
that's right. That was G-Code.
And so we had that. I think at the time when he shared, he was using Evernote, and then just Evernote got too slow. So I was just, notes is easy. Just pop up notes and just go at it. But he did have the G-Code app, to kind of work through that. But one of the G's obviously is gratitude.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay. Yeah. I never studied the G code. I saw him talk about it, but never really dove into it.
It's really, really good. I mean, Garrett White has, something, similar with Warrior, faith, freedom, finance, fitness, so it's just kind of the combination of the different equities.
Yeah.
But it's putting it into a process. It's like, one of my favorites is Hal's, right, from the Miracle Morning, and his savors. And, part of that silence could also be gratitude, could be prayer, could be meditation, could be mindfulness. But it's one of those things that you want to incorporate as a habit. And that's a really healthy habit, especially for us mentally. And, it's really the first thing, and we talk about it all the time, right? In Al, we were talking with Gogo, right? Just the last week, the personal development side of things, but really the personal development around the mindset side of things. And I'm so grateful for the work that we all did in that run, 12, 13, 14, 15 timeframe run that we all went through, and doing the work, man. Carol DeWick, Byron Katie, Marley Adams, who the mentors and coaches in our life at the time, Clayton Mask in our life, just the challenges on our mental being inside of things, and having access to being able to connect with his coach, right? You look back at that time. I mean, wow, a decade ago that, and we damn sure put the work in, like we all did. And we challenged each other, and it's deep. It's some heady stuff, but to be able to sit here and kind of the mindset, and I tell you what it does for me. And I've really been, kind of talking with Leanne through a lot of this. And the visual is that you've got to be the calm in the chaos, and you've got to be still. And when you have a gratitude practice, a mindfulness practice, silence, prayer, when you have that, it allows you to be able to be centered and be still. And the visual, think about that visual, right? It's just like the chaos in the world is exploding around you, but you're dead still and nothing can mess with you. That's what it means to me when you talk about gratitude, mindfulness, silence, prayer, having that skill set, having that mindset, and having that, practice. You're able to just sit in it, and it doesn't bother you.
I love it. I've tried meditating so many times, bro, and I struck out. But the times that I've been successful were only when it was a gratitude based meditation. It's so much easier for me to just kick into a relaxed mode. Takes away anxiety, stress. It just almost magically just evaporates when the center is, because I studied Buddhism and everything, and they what they kind of teach is to think about nothing. You really shouldn't be having the thought enters in, you just let it go back out the other side. I struggled with that. Yeah. And what's funny is I have ADHD, and it's hard to focus on anything. But when I try to focus on nothing, I can't focus on nothing, but I can focus on gratitude so much. It's just so much easier. And because it is a central force of, central place of peace. And it could be the difference. I don't know if you told the story, but just in the last year, I heard the story about the Holocaust survivor who was literally imprisoned in this cage with about 3 or 4 other women. And they were, literally being treated like dogs. They literally were, it was infested with fleas. Yeah. They weren't even allowed to read their scripture and stuff like that. They had to hide that from the guards because they would get beaten again. And there was just all these things. And when they asked her 20, 30 years later, what got you through it? She said it was gratitude. And they said, what were you grateful for? And she said, I was grateful for the fleas. Yeah. Mm. And they're like, what do you mean you were grateful for the fleas? John, if you could tell the story better, jump in.
It is. It's my coach was the one that actually shared that story with me. And
that came from you. Okay.
And he because that's just kind of where the mindset side of things goes. And in every moment you can find a piece of gratitude. And it's just because, you got to look for it. And I saw the reel the other day. It's funny, right? How the algorithms work, right? You start looking at things and talking about gratitude, those things start showing up. Adesanya, the UFC champ or whatever, but he talked about his gratitude practice. And at the end of the day, right? So that's what, Dan Sullivan talks about, write down at the end of the day, the 3 things that you were most grateful for the day. And so, Stylebender was doing that practice, but what he would do is that it forced him. Now he was looking throughout the day for 3 things that he could write in his journal at the end of the day. So he started. It's the reticular activator, man, right? It's
you're now looking for it.
right? Like
Focus
black
is
G Wagon, right? Like you might not see it. You might not think you have seen a G Wagon for years in your market, but all of a sudden now you see 23 black G Wagons because now that's all you're thinking about. And it's the same thing, right? His reticular activator was fired for gratitude. So he would go throughout the day and he said his life changed just because he was looking for things to be grateful for. So he could write it down in his journal at the end of the day. And I'm with you, bro, man. The gratitude practice is probably one of the most powerful, habits that you can really develop, because you just start to see things. And that's what, the story about, you can even be thankful for fleas. You can even be grateful for that, because that was
Can you finish that out though, John? Like,
yeah. So what she said was that, well, why? And she said, well, because if it wasn't for the fleas, the guards would have came in, they would have found our scripture, and they would have taken it away. And we would have never had that moment to where we were able to bond and share scripture and have that time that really got us through that period. And so she goes, if it wasn't for the fleas, that would have never happened. But nobody would go in there. The guards wouldn't go in there, nothing. So they had that time. They were able to keep the scripture. They were able to have that time amongst themselves to keep them, one day at a time, during that period of their life.
Yeah. So powerful, dude. And so like my follow-up question to that would be, because this is what I'm asking, dude, I love this podcast. I write a page of notes every time we do this podcast. For real. Like, selfishly, I'm looking at like, if it can help me, then I figure that it can help someone else. But my next question to myself is what today are my fleas that I should be grateful for? Right. I mean, thankfully I don't have fleas running around this house, but what are my fleas? Like when you burn the boats, what boats are you burning?
Yeah.
And what are you saying? What are you saying no and no more to? Right. But what are you grateful for? Are you grateful? Like the real, when you go to the next level of gratitude, it's like, are you grateful for those boats you had to burn? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? What you said is your reticular activator is always looking if in this practice, and I'm doing it. I'm committed to, because I already actually have the journal. I carry it around with me already. I just got to get into the habit of every morning. I'm not going to go just get a cup of coffee, or maybe I will get a cup of coffee, but I'm going to sit down, hit that gratitude journal. But it's not always just going to be the positive, good things. Of course, we're always going to be grateful for our children, grateful for our spouse, our significant other, it's our parents or someone that we look up to in our life. Those are all positive things. But what about the ones that fuck with you? Mm-hmm. What about those things that are like, man, like if you can figure out a way to be grateful for the flea that's in there biting at your foot.
What is it teaching me?
Wow.
Right? What am I learning from this? And Hormozi talks a lot about this too, right? It's like if you were to give your kids certain traits that you would want them to have. And I've seen a lot of, I want X, so God gives me Y. And you have to go through that to be able to get that, whatever it is. And Hormozi talks about that too, right? So like if you want, you want strength, well, what has to happen in order for that to be true? You want peace, what has to happen in order for that to be true? And so the struggle, right? Because life is uphill and you're either growing or you're dying. And so complacency and not the sacrifice and the trade-off, those things are never possible. And so I think that's, to your point, is like, what am I learning here? Right. So these are all great questions. And I think this goes back to what, just so freaking grateful, all the work that we put in and just being able to change the way we think and just ask better questions and better mental models. And I think I told you, Alec, because I hadn't been able to tell you, man, I went back and I'm not done yet, but I went back and started rereading the 4 agreements. So good. So good in that, putting that thing into perspective and where, not taking things personally, never assuming. And, I'm grateful I didn't assume this today, or right. Like you can kind of work through, like you said, those fleas, because they're biting at us every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing, since we brought Stuman up, is the force of average, which, is that invisible force that pulls us back to mediocrity, pulls us back from our version of our elite self that we're, at least most of us, are striving for on a daily basis. And then we get dragged right back down. There's no success without the struggle. A muscle can't be built without that tension of tearing it down so it can build back up. And we just kind of forget about that sometimes. It's not just about all the, the fairy tale life that, we all, seem to have compared to other people in the world. We have to keep in mind that it's the struggles. It's the tough months in business. It's man, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I'm thankful for 08, 09.
Yep.
I literally lost everything and went deep into debt. But why am I grateful for that? Because in 2010, 2 short years later, through that pain, I met you guys. And if I hadn't gone through that, I probably wouldn't have hit so low of a bottom where I felt like, okay, all right, time out. I can't do it no more. You know what I mean? Like, I need help. And I may never reach that had I never hit that depth of a low. Mm-hmm. And lost everything. So it really is. And I used to say it all the time, but now, I don't know, this just gave me a whole new perspective on being thankful for 08, 09. We say, well, there's lessons learned, but we don't have to learn them again. And that is true. But being thankful for 08, 09, shit.
It took me a decade to get to where I could be thankful for it. But
right. But like, when you really for real get to it, not just say it, but like when you feel it in your heart that you're thankful for the recession that we went through 08, 09, where everybody lost their wealth and everything and their money, you can take on anything.
Exactly.
That's
exactly. You realize, man, if I can make it through that, I can do whatever's in front of me. Like, everything that you have to do gets so much easier when you've gone through something that hard and came out and survived it. I mean, it's, that is something to be grateful for. No question.
Yeah, it is, man. It's things that like cause anxiety. And so, part of that other conversation that Matt was having, kind of sharing with the fleas, he also talked about state of flow. And where anxiety comes in and skills match is where flow happens. So you got the challenge that is great, but you've got the skill set to match it. That puts you in a state of flow. Where you fall into a state of anxiety is that the challenge is greater than the skills you have to be able to overcome it.
Yeah.
That's where anxiety comes in. So that should be a trigger. That should be an awareness of, okay, why am I anxious about this? Why am I concerned about this? What skills do I not have to be able to match this? Mm-hmm. That's the skills I need to go develop. That's the who I need to associate with. That's the who I need to make the hire to. That's what I need to do. I need to match my skill to my challenge. And now I'm back in a state of flow. The opposite is when my skills are greater than the challenge I'm facing. I get bored. And, idle time, right, is not a good thing. And what's that Nipsey quote, lyric, on a mission, the worst enemy is idle time. And we find a lot of idle time when we've got the skills, but we don't have the challenge to match it. And so, kind of being grateful for that understanding moving into the new year. You got anybody listening, I would tell you that if you're bored, you need a bigger challenge. You need a bigger challenge. And if you're anxious, you need to focus on the skill set to be able to match that.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
And when we talk about skills, we're not just talking about sales skills or business strategy skills and things of that nature. We're talking about life skills, skills and empathy, being skilled, a skilled listener, being skilled at becoming aware of a situation as it develops. And the two of you do an outstanding job of that. I feel like I've always, kind of looked up to both of you guys as, and we all have our moments, but, for the most part, like that's something I know, I have to have a better, it's like hitting the pause button, right? It's a skill.
Yeah.
And you guys I'm giving you props. You guys got, you've gotten like Kinder, especially you. I mean, dude, you're a different person. I've seen you handle some stressful ass situations recently where I'm like, that Jay? Normally he'd be throwing a boombox off the top floor of a hotel right now.
Better.
Like, how the fuck is he? He's calm as a cucumber. Damn.
It might be the psychedelics.
Those do help.
There you go. It's a real thing. Look it up. Yeah. So man, so I was at at Grant Cardone's WealthCon last week, right? I'm talking about grateful. And man, they're just billionaire speakers, one after another. And I want to share a couple of nuggets that the biggest takeaway from the whole event, outside of the fact that everybody's bullish on Bitcoin, and there's a lot of really interesting people in the room. They're bullish on Bitcoin, and they're super bullish on multifamily. But this one guy that spoke, Bob Duggan, he went from 4 billion net worth last year to 13 billion in 1 year. So he had a really good year. But he had a couple of things that I thought, and he was just talking about his journey, right? And going through it. It's like, man, that's so true. It's so true. It's so true. It's so true. That you have, you said it earlier, Alex, like you have to go through, the only way to success is through failure. That's the path. There isn't a straight line to success. You have to go through failure to get there. But he was talking about your willingness to take on challenges, get knocked down and get back up. Another thing, he talked about was focusing on impact, making a difference. But one of the things that I really liked was, he talks about wealth and, like money doesn't buy you happiness. You have to be productive, overcoming barriers and challenges, knowing that good things are coming and that good things are happening to you right now. And so like his mindset around all this stuff was really good. Another thing he said, and I think this goes back to what you were saying earlier, John, is like you got to educate to activate. So like if you want to get activated, get that education, seek what it is that you don't know, whatever's giving you that anxiety. If you educate, it activates you. Like once, when you learn something, you're like, oh damn, I didn't know I could do that. That's amazing. That's a killer. That's a hack. Right. And so like you have to, you in order to get activated, you have to learn something. You got to keep moving towards what it is you're trying to solve. But I thought there was some really great speakers that, doing some big things out there that it was great. I was grateful to be in the room. There's a guy, I want everybody to write this guy's name down because everybody needs to go do this.
What was the Duggan guy before you moved
Bob,
on?
Bob Duggan.
Bob. Okay.
Bob Duggan. Yeah. Great dude. Just you could just tell, great human being. So this guy, write this down. Carlton Dennis, Karlton Dennis. And so you might, it's been almost 2 years now, knowing that, the living on the island is, at some point going to come to an end, and I'm coming back to the States and I have to have a plan for, number one for me was, what's my philosophy on how I'm investing money? We make a lot of money. What's my philosophy? And so I start asking people that question. What's your philosophy? What's your philosophy? What's your philosophy? Trying to learn, what are people's philosophies on investing money? And then, coming back to the States, primarily, I'm just wanting to make sure I pay the least amount of tax. The biggest expense every person has individually and as a business is taxes, period. So, that's the first place, let's try to, it's just like looking at a brokerage. Where am I going to be able to keep the most money? Well, the EXP, you get to get paid to be here. So it's the best brokerage to be at, period. But this Carlton Dennis guy is a tax strategist. And this is something I realized in dealing with a lot of investors that are investing in some of these properties, these multifamily deals that we're putting together. Most people have a CPA. And so as I talk to someone about the opportunity, the investment, then they go to their CPA and, they'll tell them something that generally isn't true or isn't helpful in terms of what they're making the investment. most everyone has a CPA. They don't have a tax planner or a tax strategist. There's a big difference in the two. And so this guy, Carlton Dennis with a K, he's on YouTube. You go to his YouTube channel. It's Tax Alchemy. But you can set up a call with him. And I already did the calls. The first thing I did, then I sent it to my dad. I was like, you need to do this. So I always joke about, my dad, I'm going to inherit basically a bunch of damn tractors and fucking trailers and all this shit, because he goes to a CPA every year. He's like, oh, you need to go buy some more equipment and shit. I'm like, Dad, listen, like, there's got to be a better way, bro. Like, I mean, you're killing me with all this shit. I don't need it. You don't need any more tractors and trailers.
We're going to have a big ass auction as well.
You got a 12,000 square foot shop full of just shitty used to write off on his taxes, which is fine if you need that stuff, but if you don't need it, that's not a strategy. And so there was a couple things in there that was really, really helpful. The first one, and not to get into IRS code, but it's called 469-9. And it's your ability to, if you have an Airbnb that you rent for less than 7 days to 2 people in a year, you can bundle everything, and that allows you to become a real estate investor, a full-time real estate professional per the IRS code. And you can write off, in any and every investment you make into multifamily. This is something that people make these investments and they don't qualify for the cost seg, which in years past, if you put $100,000 into an investment into multifamily, you could write off as much as 80% the first year. That's insane, right? Like, there's huge deduction. So, this guy that when you have your call with them, they're going to go through, all of your income, all your investments, everything that you're doing. And then he broke down basically into your 3 buckets. Let me see if I have good enough note. Oh wait, I did a call with him later than the event. Let's see. So you're going to want to hear this. This is good shit. This is gold right here. So basically, you have your business owner bucket with your vehicles, write-offs, expenses, things you can write off within your business, salary, all that kind of stuff, and your retirement bucket, 401k, any type of health insurance, all these different things you can use for that bucket. And then the last bucket is real estate, which they're big on investing into real estate, multifamily, even single family, and cost segregation and doing all that. But he said anything you have left over, rather than pay tax, there's multiple investments that they look at that you can invest in that are deductible. So you can invest in oil and gas investments. You can write off 90% of the investment the first year. Another one is you can invest in, so there's some of this crazy, gas stations. If you invest in gas stations, you can write 1.6 was, what did I write? 1.6x write-off is what I wrote on that. Another one is
Hollywood. Like 1.5 times what you invested.
That's what I wrote down. I would have to confirm with them on that. But gas stations, so they have relationships with all these different companies that they work with in all these areas. So if you have, if you're trying to get a deduction, but you rather make an investment than just buy some shit. All of these were ways that they look at for how you can do that. So they have another one that's Hollywood movies. And then you can invest in Hollywood movies. Believe it or not, I have no idea why that's tax deductible, but it is. The heavy machinery one, which I found out about that from John Wamberg, right before ConnectCon, where you can invest if you buy $1 million worth of equipment that's in this pool, and then you lease it. So you buy $1 million worth of equipment, you put 10% down, so you put $100,000 in, you get to write off $1 million. And then they lease that equipment out and it cash flows. And then they guarantee to buy the equipment back at 75% of the value. So that's another potential write-off. And there was one other one. Well, I guess. Then they had another one that was leasing business equipment. And you can write off 10x what you put into that. So if you put $50,000 into leasing this business equipment, you can write off $500,000. $50,000, you can write off $500,000. So these are all vehicles that are legal by the tax code, but this is a tax strategist that's helping you look at, here's your income, here's all your expenses, here's what you're probably going to end up paying in taxes. Let's have a strategy for how we're going to invest money so that you don't have to pay as much in taxes. And you're talking getting down to 10% or single digit income tax bracket. This is not tax advice. Seek your legal professional or call this guy Carlton Dennison. He'll help you. But so that was probably the highlight of the entire event, was just I don't think enough of us spend enough time. We just, we get to the end of the year and we're, you're okay. What can I do? Well, it's a little bit late. So, getting with this guy, maybe not for this year, maybe for this year, if you have the ability to do some of these things, but certainly getting set up for next year was my biggest takeaway from that entire event. Fantastic, great speaker, and just great overall strategy. And it just resonated with me because I talked to a lot of people that have money to invest. All of them are using CPAs. None of them had a tax strategist, even some of the wealthiest people I know. So if you don't have a tax strategist, I don't know what this guy charges yet. I think I'll find out on my next call, but I promise you I'm paying it. So starts with, you got to start with, generating active income. You got to do something to make money. Get out there, sell houses, do whatever it takes to make as much money as you can. And then you got to learn how to not pay as much of it as possible legally in taxes and invest that safely. And, over the years, it's funny because I used to, we flipped. How many houses do you think we flipped in our day?
Probably at least 100, if not more.
I don't know where that money is, but I don't think I have it. I don't know where I put it, but I probably
two developments as well, right?
Right. Developments. So we made a lot of money, but you look up and it's like, well, 500,000 to GTAT that went to zero, and you got all these different things that you've made, poor decisions in investing. Hell, it's hard enough to make money. You can't afford to invest and lose it. So what are the safest ways for you to invest, reduce your taxes, and build wealth? And, we landed on multifamily as that main strategy. But having a tax strategist, I think for everyone is by far one of the things you can do that can, allow you to keep the majority of money you're keeping. You're making.
Because as you're kind of talking through there, I default back to it's all about the team, right? So it's building the life team.
Yep.
That's in alignment. So we know what's the goal, right? What's the vision? What's the goal? What's kind of the model that we're going to operate within? What's our biggest problems? We're going to have the right strategy, right? Good strategy, bad strategy. We're solving the right problem. And then what's the team have to look like in order for us to execute the strategy within the current business structure model that we're operating within in pursuit of the goal and the vision? It's an up and down ladder. But most people, when you say team, they just think about their business. You got to have the life team. And the tax strategist has to be a part of your life team.
Yep.
Along with the CPA, along with the bookkeeper, along with, head of marketing, also your fitness coach, your spiritual advisor, your relationship dynamic, right? So you just start to look at the things that are important in your life. You got to have the right who. And this is where I keep coming back to Jim Collins, right? It's the who. Mm-hmm. Somebody hit me with that question the other day. They're like, do I do the business model and the strategy, or is it the who? I was like, it's always the who. Mm-hmm. It's always the who.
100%. Another little takeaway. So they handed these out. How to get super rich for kids, which this one's Riggs and Kinley. So I've got. If y'all don't have, y'all's kids are old enough now. It might not be helpful, but for anybody listening who has younger kids, there's a credit card company called Greenlight. Super badass. So I set up my kids with their own credit cards, and I'm in control of, either depositing money based on the chores that they have and things like that. They get paid. I can pay them interest on the money that they leave in that account and save it, or they can invest it into the stock market. So they can choose what stocks they want to invest in, and I can tell them how much they have to invest or not. So I can kind of control how much they're saving versus how much they're spending. And so, I gave them this book to read. Both, and I incentivized them by telling them I was going to get Riggs. He filled out he did the whole thing, man. And she hasn't given me hers. She's done with it, but they did it all in one day, which I was shocked, by the way. But I pitted them against each other. I said, whoever gets done first is going to get $500, which is a lot, but I didn't think they were going to do it. And so they both went to work trying to get done first. And so I gave them both $500 to set it up, but they got their own credit cards. They can control their own investments, and they're starting to learn how to. You can't save money and become wealthy, but you can invest money and become wealthy. And so teaching them these principles that they don't teach in school, I think is something that we want. I've literally lost millions and millions and millions of dollars. Like if I would hate to sit down and see I mean, I can think of 3 things that cost me $500,000 in the last 10 years. So like how much, is it costing me by not having a good strategy around money? You can't afford to spend your whole life just to get money to lose it or to not invest it, safely and lose it. Tax people, 500K we spent to, work with, what was the guy's name? Joe Garza, one of the top tax attorneys in the state of Texas. And we find out the IRS is, or basically the FBI is raiding his office one afternoon. It was on the news, and we're like, "Fuck, that can't be good, right?" So the IRS is like, we paid him $250, plus we had to pay all the back taxes because his thing wasn't legit. So there's all these things that I'm super conservative now, and I used to be super high risk because money has always come somewhat easy, to make, but. Now I'm like, no, give me that safe. Where's that safety? The safest way to invest and create wealth. And and of course I got a lot of high risk stuff too. But yeah, anyway, so I think that's super important. And so another great book, 10X for Kids. I think it's not on Amazon. I think you have to go to his website to order that one. Awesome. But also Greenlight is the credit card company you can set up for your kids. It's really cool, super efficient, easy to use. The kids have their own little debit cards they can use. On whatever they want to buy or whatever, but they're also, making choices on what stocks they're going to invest in and stuff like that.
That's super cool, man. It's funny, kind of thinking through. I don't know, because I don't even think I've shared this with you. I've shared it with Al. I've shared it on a couple other podcasts and stuff. And just reflecting as a coach, and just kind of a thought exercise for us, right? October was 20 years for you and I, and I was like, if I was our coach and I'm coaching these 2 27-year-old knuckleheads, what would I coach them on? And, I keep coming back. I run different scenarios, different thought experiments, different thought exercises, but I always keep coming back to this. Our business is a vehicle that's moving us to freedom. And what I would have beat us over the head with was, listen, y'all quit chasing status and focus on freedom. Here, let's get clear on what freedom means to the two of you, and let's design and build the business in pursuit of freedom. Now, grateful that we didn't do that, because we wouldn't be sitting here today if that was the case. So grateful that we had to go through that 20-year journey to get to this point. However, I love to share this story, especially with younger. I was on with Gay Dosh's crew last week, and I shared the whole story with them. And the problem that we were in is just, I think it's age, maybe, and maybe both of us just as competitive as we are. I think because we wanted to just beat the shit out of Pam and Barry, and so whatever it took, and it took sacrifice, it took our health, it took our relationships. It was not good, and it was chasing status. And I think getting through, Bette David's book, and I remember you were on the flight leaving the land from agent to CEO, and you said, "Hey, would you rebuild with Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0?" And my answer would have been yes, until Bette David's book came out. And right. I honestly believe you can build an empire off of Choose Your Enemies Wisely. Just off of that book alone, I in my soul, I believe you can build an empire just off of that book. And the framework that he talks about of going from survival to status, to freedom, to legacy has just really resonated with me. And that's the dynamic that I would have coached us differently on. And I would have been really hard on us about, dude, that's status. Get out of status, get to freedom. And then, because once you get to freedom, and this is where you guys are at right now, is now we're focused on legacy. And, it's just both of you guys are building, the Kinder brand, the Stasek brand, and really changing the kids. I mean, just even think about this, like Braden and Carson, but now like what you're doing with Riggs and Kinley, right? Like just changing the whole dynamic and the psychology of how they look and think about money.
Right.
And so just man, I can't explain that to enough people. Like, don't be chasing number one in your market. Don't be chasing number one for your company. Like that'll come if it comes. But you need to be designing your vehicle and your life team that's going to get you to freedom. And because once you're at freedom, bro, like I know, a lot of freedom is mindset, but also being able to have the financial means to do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whomever you want, as often as you want.
Yeah. I mean, It's so funny because I think back to like, when we were, 27, 28 and there was so much ahead of us, that it was like, yeah, we'll get to that shit later. We're over here building something, but and to a certain degree, I think that, we put in an inappropriate amount or maybe the appropriate amount of hours in, to get us there faster. But I think we just did it the hard way, by not understanding, when I anytime I'm listening to, I get pitched ideas all the time, and there's always this little thing that's going to make money, or but I'm always trying to get down to like the thing that I learned in looking at all the businesses that we've been in is the time investment and the lifetime value of a customer. Because it's real easy to go, I'm going to go sell this technology thing for, that's how we started, right? We started selling over the web, where, we walk out on somebody's website. Remember when Mike sent that to me? I drove straight to Texas. That shit was so funny. But we're going to sell, $15, over the web video, right? And then what did we learn? We learned, well, the barrier to getting one of those videos was you had to go to a studio where somebody had video equipment. This is how long ago it was. And, get this video shot and take a couple hours. And so you can't sell very many of those because the barrier for someone to get it done was so high. There's some, most people didn't even know a videographer back then. And so like all of these things that you learn along the way, when I come back to like, the business model that makes the most sense is going to be the one where the customer pays you the longest. Right. And so, Carson was, he was, funny story. Y'all, I don't even think y'all have heard the story. So Carson texted me the other day, right? He was working for me, and, I fired him because I can't, he wasn't ready. So, but I said, listen, bud, I don't care what you do. Just fucking do something, go do something, find something and get excited and go chase something. Like, figure out what you want it to be. You're not going to know what you're going to love. Anyways, he ends up landing on somehow or another, gets invited to, it was Patrick Bet David's company, PH something, some whatever. I'd have to look at it. Yeah. PHP. Is that what it is? I think it is.
I think it might be.
Yeah, it is. I think it is. It's PH something. I think it's PHP. Yeah. PHP. Yeah. PHP agency. So this is a crazy story. So and I said it to you, Al, when we were on the call with him the other day. I think I mentioned it to you, but that morning, the night before, he had sent me a text about PHP, and then I got on with the guy from PHP that again, this is Patrick Bett's company that he had sold, and they had a tiered compensation plan similar to EXP, right? So, he was all excited about it. He's wearing a suit and tie every day. He's working till 10, 11, 12. He's learning right now. Like, this is the best thing that could ever happen to him. But he's in it, and he's, trying to make sales and, trying to reach little tiers of, opportunity or whatever. And there's the same kind of things that we plugged ourselves into and got coached and trained and, along our own paths. But he ends up, now he's selling life insurance. Well, I love life insurance. I think it's great because, why people don't fucking cancel it. Like anything that you can sell that people get paid for, you get paid for a long period of time is a good business to be in. And, we went from selling a lot of real estate, and you always tell the stories like, man, it was great. We sold, 50, we had, I don't remember when exactly it was. I remember where I was when we erased the board, and it was like 55 closings, and it was like, we had to start over again. And it was one of those months where it was a fucking ass whipping. And it was just like, damn, man, we got to do this shit again. Like, it started over, the clock started every 30 days. And, there just had to be a better way. How do you get paid, a higher per customer than just one sale, move on to the next one sale, move on to the next one, and we evolved and we kept looking for a better way. And like at EXP, the bottom line is there's multiplication to it where, we recruit one agent, and as long as they stay with the company 7 years, we get paid for 7 years with that customer. There's no coaching product, no residual product, no technology product, very few that people will keep for 7 years. It's just the lifetime value of a customer is better at EXP. And so when you go through all of these things to get to a place where, well, okay, now there's multiplication. We got somebody who tells somebody who tells somebody who tells somebody. That's not work you're doing. That's leverage. Now I got all my time back, and the amount that I'm getting paid per person is the longest of anything that I've seen in my business and any of the businesses I've been a part of. An average agent stays 5 to 7 years. you've got literally your time back, and you've got the multiplication factor, and you got the lifetime value of a customer. That's why this business model of EXP makes the most sense. All these going out selling widgets, this, that, and the other. That's great. You can go sell something for $69 a month or $50 a month. You might sell a whole bunch of them, but guess what? In 6 months, the churn starts coming in, right? And now I lost 25 customers. Now I got to sell 25 to stay where I was at. Mm-hmm. And that we experienced that in coaching. It was like residual income. This is the best thing we've ever done till year 2, when we started having 10 people cancel. Now you had to sell 10 just to stay back where you were at. And so I'm grateful. Back to the whole point of this podcast today, I'm grateful for all those lessons along the way. And if there was something I would tell anybody to pay attention to, it's looking at where you get leverage with your time, and the lifetime value of a sale or a customer is the highest number, or the longest period of time is where you're going to find the best business. That's my 2 cents.
Love it, man. We're going to wrap up here, and as we wrap up, I want to share one more thing I'm grateful for. I think when I was in my late 20s, started getting into real estate, struggled for a while, but when I started seeing a little bit of success, so I would probably be mid 30s, I was like, you know what? I want to go back to my high school, and I want to talk to the high school seniors, and I want to speak to them about the things that I've had to learn that nobody was talking to me about in high school. And I have not done that, but I got invited by one of my high school alumni that I graduated with. She's a teacher at a different school that's like one suburb away from me over here. So at 9:00 this morning, I went and spoke to a math class. And this is a vocational math class. Like, these kids are not going to college. They did not have good grades like me. They're not college bound, right? Like, they're going into trades, which I love because I connected with them. And they wanted me to go talk about why it's important to buy a house versus renting. And I kind of went into it, a bit of a different spin on it. Of course, I touched on why it's important. I put a picture of my first house I bought, how much I paid for it, how much it was worth when we sold it, just to give them real high level visuals. I didn't get real deep in the weeds. But at the end of it, I ended on taking care and understanding your money. Understanding that leaving your money in a savings account is losing money. Mm-hmm. And when I said that to them, they looked cross-eyed at me, and the teacher backed me up. He's like, remember we talked about inflation class? I'm saying all that to say this. I'm going back at 2:00. So it's almost 1. I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it again. But what I left them with at the end is that freedom, they're never going to experience freedom if they don't learn how to take care of their money. I never learned how to take care of my money until way late in life. And and so we kind of had some, because one of the lessons that was in buying a house is, well, how do you save for money, and how do you make sure your credit score stays okay so you could get a mortgage and this and that? And so I ended it on a couple interesting things that had nothing to do with buying houses. One was, if you hear nothing that I say today, except one thing, is just understand, no matter how much money you make or how much little money you make. I said, I've been broke and I've been rich. And I can tell you this, I'm going to choose rich every time from the movie, right?
Yeah.
And the truth of it is because I wasn't understanding money. And it doesn't matter what you choose. You could be a plumber. I said, anyone in here looking to get into trades? Good. Because a friend of mine just sold his plumbing business for $10 million. A plumber. Everyone used to look down at plumbers. No, the plumbers are getting rich right now. I saw all their eyes now start to be like, oh, okay. And the teacher didn't pull me in for that. And I'll end with this. The second thing that I told him was, I said, raise the hands in here if you hang out with some losers. You can admit it. I do sometimes. I hang out with some degenerates, right? And when I was your age, I hung out with a lot of them. And they were my best friends. I love them. And sometimes, today I still love them. But I said, it's who you surround yourself from this point forward that's gonna put you in a great position where you can be free one day, or you're gonna be trapped. Yep. Learn the money game and surround yourself with people who are lifting you up, not dragging you back down. And that's how I left it. I know it was supposed to be about, selling, how to buy your first house and everything, but these kids need to hear this. raw and real.
Mhm.
And I was just like, I was emotional walking out of that school because I was just grateful that I was allowed to be there and do that, which is what I wish someone would have came into our senior math class and smacked me over the head with a 2x4 and like, this is what you need to be focused on, you know. And those are the moments where I will listen when someone gets up into my head and my soul, you know, and you got to really talk to them, you know, at the same level. So,
Yep.
anyways,
Love that.
So
yep.
good.
Love you guys.
Love you guys. Appreciate you.
Bye. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.